wanted to talk about today too was what we view as the next step is the Connected Fleet Challenge. So the Connected Fleet Challenge basically gets fleet owners some experience deploying connected equipment, specifically onboard units within their vehicles, so they have experience and time for when we actually have mass deployment for future fleets. This will be beneficial because we can actually do some trials of some various application, red light violation warnings, eco glide path, stuff that we can take the existing SPAT message and actually start to try some applications on top of that. Infrastructure owner-operators have participated in SPAT Challenge. They just need a mechanism to perform additional verification for the broadcast, and this would allow for that. So a lot of deployments are actually going ahead and doing onboard units and vehicles to start to prepare. In our case, one thing I didn't touch on is we didn't have an onboard unit. CMU did in their vehicle, but they didn't bring it out until the day before to help out with additional verification. We just took a spare roadside unit, reconfigured it, and that's what was receiving the actual SPAT message. We had that hooked up to a computer to verify everything was being received properly, and that's how we did it. We are right now working on our first deployment of an onboard unit in a vehicle, but everything up until now, we've just been using a spare roadside unit to actually verify before we can get someone out with an actual equipped vehicle to test. To give you an idea of the scale of the Connected Fleet Challenge, we view this as public sector fleets are generally not ready for wide-scale deployments, and there are several reasons for this. Limited funds, basically a wait-and-see approach, basically observing other demonstrations and pilot sites and early other deployments. Money is limited, and it's hard to actually get people to commit enough to just doing the SPAT Challenge, but then to start building out fleets, taking vehicles out of commission. It's a harder sell, it can be at times, especially depending on the size of the fleet that you're asking for someone to do. Also, there's limited and sometimes no experience in operating onboard units and various types of vehicles. Blaine will be talking about transit vehicles later, but there's a whole variety of fleets out there. The other thing is that there's a need for an initiative to help the fleet operators gain experience, and this will position them for large-scale deployments, and that's what we view this as the next step. So the goal of the Connected Fleet Challenge is not necessarily quantity, it's diversity. So it's more of quality over quantity type of approach. So ideally, we want numerous variations of models and configurations of both heavy and light-duty vehicles for this challenge. But each fleet operator does not need to deploy each of these variations. It's everyone working together, sharing experience, and building off of that is the ultimate goal. So while the SPAT Challenge right now is tracking actual locations of SPAT messages being broadcast, and for the most part they're the exact same, the Connected Fleet Challenge is going to take a slightly different approach. It's going to likely look at variations of type of vehicles, whether it be maintenance vehicles, buses, delivery vehicles, passenger vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles, etc. Basically, what types of onboard units are equipped, any lessons learned, how the variations between these vehicles, the variations between how things are equipped. That is what's going to be the focus of the Connected Fleet Challenge. Using transit as an example, so we have 10 transit agencies and each equip 2 of their buses. This could result in as many as 20 different models or configurations of buses. So through a tracking website, we can have the lessons learned, the cost, the installation experiences of each of these could be reported and tracked. So to the industry, this would represent a substantial percentage of the different types of the buses versus actually having to build out a large fleet. So the ultimate goal of this is to gain that experience and that knowledge for each different types. So if we have a variety of equipped vehicles, you don't have to have everyone do one of each vehicle. We just have to have someone do it at one point and then share that information. Additionally, if we have several school buses and a fleet to participate, this could result in understanding of institutional legal steps required to equip school buses. That's always seems to be a hot issue. I should say a touchy issue, depending on the locality. So that's just another thing that we can work on. One of the goals of the Connected Fleet Challenge is to have the fleet operators equip at least 2 of their fleet vehicles right now. A heavy duty and a light duty would be the focus. We want the fleet operators to collaborate with other fleet operators to achieve as much diversification as possible, and that's going to be done across the nation, and just so you can share. So once again, it's more about quality versus quantity. And also, we want the fleet operators to partner with the infrastructure owner-operators that have deployed SPAT and MAP broadcasts so you can have that data exchange to make sure everything's working properly, get lessons learned, figure out how to digest and use this data. So, as I mentioned, the big focus is 2 vehicles, 1 heavy-duty, 1 light-duty, with an industry focus on diversity, different makes, models, years, different types of vehicles, and you share all those lessons learned. So the beauty of the SPAT challenge is that, it had some basic simplistic focuses, and this can actually build off of those. That really makes things easier. So, we can build off the SPAT challenge because we can actually verify everything's being broadcast properly. We can take those messages, as I mentioned before. We can start doing some applications, and then we can actually then start to equip these vehicles to broadcast the basic safety message that allows us as a DOT, as an infrastructure owner-operator, to then receive these messages and learn how to actually process them through those connected intersections. We have benefits to both the infrastructure owner-operators and the OEMs, just like the SPAT challenge. We gain experience from the infrastructure owner-operator side. We can test out different applications. We can work on interoperability. We can try out day 1 applications. And on the flip side, for an OEM, you still increase market penetration. Every vehicle that we equip through this challenge is one more on the road. If we're looking at some more of safety-critical vehicles, such as snow plows, crash trucks, paint trucks, those types, there's benefits to the OEMs because these are types of vehicles that customers probably would like to know about, that they're out on the road because it tends to be tied to some sort of mobile operation or work that's being done. So there's some benefit then to the OEMs that could then go off to their clients for early deployments. It opens up whole market for aftermarket devices, and it just continues to show support for the whole deployment of DSRC and connected technology. One of the big things we wanted to make sure to do with the Connected Fleet Challenge is keep it simplistic. You have to do this, especially when trying to sell this to leadership. You have to be able to make your elevator speech. So it has to be something that's intuitive, easily understood. So simple concept is if you're doing V to I, we're doing the I with this SPAT challenge, but you need that V there. So this is going to start to address that component. And the more deployments that are popping up with SPAT challenge, we're just not seeing the same numbers pop up with the connected fleet. So this would help to try and even out those numbers. And unlike the SPAT challenge that was predominantly focused at DOTs and municipalities that own traffic signals, the Connected Fleet Challenge can be more than just DOTs. It opens things up. So logistics-wise, we're looking at partnerships between fleet operators and infrastructure owner-operators that have participated in the SPAT challenge. Once again, 2 vehicles, 1 heavy-duty and 1 light-duty, with an onboard unit that can receive the SPAT and MAP message, and working to make sure and verify and test that the SPAT and MAP message are properly being received and processed. And infrastructure owner-operators then will be working with the partners to test and verify communications and develop and receive basic safety messages coming back. So as I mentioned before, it's more than just DOTs. So you have the maintenance fleets that DOTs have, but you can also tie into taxi fleets and transit fleets and emergency first responders. And it doesn't have to be just DOTs. This could be transit authorities. It could be county governments, local governments, police forces, whatever it might be. It opens up the realm when we just start talking about the connected fleet. So this just opens up for more partners, more people to get involved in this field, more input, and it'll just help to further things a little bit more. And with that, I believe I'm turning it back over to Blaine.